And inside, I'm just saying, God, would you heal my heart just like you healed my wife's body? And I felt when he healed my heart. And I felt when he told me, you could trust me.
Went to sleep. The next morning I wake up, and that's when it hit me that hatred for that man that had killed my brother was gone.
It was almost like a voice that spoke to my heart and said that I didn't need that there was something better. And that immediately, from that point on, I lost the complete desire for drugs.
And Walter knew that I had been healed, but I wanted to be sure before I testified of it. And now I get to testify because I'm absolutely sure that God healed me of depression.
The other two things were strengthened relationships with my family and with my God. November 3rd was the worst and best day of my life.
Hello, everyone. This is Steve with the Would Somebody Testify podcast. Today, I have my grandparents, Joe and Melinda Lejarcegui. They're here to tell how they got saved, how they got together, then they got saved, as currently we are approaching their 50th anniversary celebration this weekend. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, just for intrigue's sake, Papa, how about you tell them about coming to the States?
I come a 3 years contract, and after 3 years I went back to Spain, and I don't want to come second time, even give me whole America. But I had to go service. I had to go service, and my drawing was Africa. So I had a choice, either go, if he stay over 4 months, I had to go service Africa or come back again. And then I did another 3 years contract, and then I got my CSM papers, and then I started driving truck.
So just for a little context, for people who don't know, when he went, correct me if I got the story right, going to Africa, you would only be given a small amount of money, and you had to pay for your own food. Is that what I remember correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a very tough to starvation assignment. Anyway, so this Basco is from northern Spain. But anyway, I'm not exactly sure where to ask you guys to start. Maybe you, Grandma, since you were in church as a little girl?
Yes, I was. I was in church as a little girl and was saved. And then I backslid and got out in the world. And that's how I met him. He drove truck, and you know how you lift your arm up in the air and for him to blow the horn. Well, he went around the block, and we started dating from there. We got married a month later.
Just a little unconventional. This is not life advice. They were not saved.
No, we weren't.
So from you guys getting married to getting into church, what was that process?
I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I heard the Lord speak to me, telling me, if you'll come, I'll save you. And so I could have got saved right there, but all I could think of is I had to go to church. And I went to church and got saved and went from there.
All right, Papa. You weren't saved at this point, so what got you involved in church?
Well, I started going to church with her, and people go over the altar and started crying when the Lord, they started crying. And I said, there's a bunch of craziest people going out church and crying. And then I started going Catholic, she's come Catholic, she don't like Catholic, and I don't like the holiness church, go over there and sit altar over there praying and crying and stuff. But finally, people keep praying for me. Sister Emma and stuff, they keep praying for me. And then I gotta say, Lord, save me dearly. He saved me, and I was so dearly. I want everybody saved. I mean, I want the friends I know. Why I can and then I lost a few friends, but I gained lots more. I gained lots of short people. So thank you, Lord, for that. And then my friends, they want to know what, telling my wife, see what happened to Joe. Well, I just got saved because I was so different.
Rewind a bit. Grandma, could you tell us your side of the story when the night Papa got saved? Guys weren't exactly on good terms at that point, and you kind of felt like God told you to invite him up?
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, we weren't on talking terms. And then the Lord spoke to me and said, if you ask him to go to pray, he will go. And so I said, do you want to go pray? He goes, yeah. And he went up to the altar and he was wonderfully saved.
And then afterward, you weren't sure about his salvation, right?
Yeah.
So elaborate on that. You weren't sure if he got saved because he didn't cry.
Yeah.
So the prayer you prayed after that.
I asked the Lord if he really, really got saved, that you make him cry. Well, he cried and he cried and he cried and he cried. So I knew he was saved.
You were driving at the time, Papa. Where did you say you drove to and
I
from?
was driving Portland to home, and it was freezing rain. Road was real bad. You can't even drive freezing rain. And I cry and pray, and I cry and pray, and I had dry roads. And I told her how I cry, and I had dry roads. So I turned around, load another load. I go in Telemac. People tell me after Portland, how you made it back over here. People after in Portland, 80 miles, they can't go 80 miles. The road's so bad. And I come back all the way, Idaho, loaded, and go back. And I know it was nothing but the Lord.
Let's see. So that's one story, one set of stories. See, Brianna put Papa fell asleep driving his truck one time. I'm not remembering that story.
I was in bed asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up, and I felt he was in danger. And I started praying and praying and praying and praying. And then when he called me, I said, what happened at this time of the night? He said, I fell asleep and was going off the side of the road, but then I woke up and got back on the road.
Okay, so that's what that story is. Okay, for those of you who are listening, if I do not cut this out, I can't quite remember all my grandparents' stories because we live in 2 different states. So I pulled together a list from one of my cousins. Which aunt was it that was born without hip sockets? Was it Aunt?
And Anna was born without any hip sockets.
Okay. Am I remembering correctly that she now miraculously has hip sockets?
Yes.
Okay, so could you elaborate on that?
When she was born, you always take them back for a checkup right after they're born. And when the doctor went to move her legs, they went all the way around. And so they put on this big, bulky diaper, hoping until she got older or hoping that something would happen and then she would have the hip sockets. It was very hard to take. And so they put that on her, and we just went from there from day to day, wondering what's going to happen. And then I decided to take her back to the doctor. I just felt like I needed to take her back. And when he checked her, he said she has hip sockets. I took her to church first and asked him, please pray for her. And then I took her to the doctor, and they said she has her hip sockets back.
Do you know about how old Anna was at this point?
She was just an infant.
Okay, weeks old, months old? Not sure?
Could have been month old, at least.
Month to 2 months
2,
old.
3 weeks. So.
So
Yeah.
about 2 months old, and she had her hip sockets.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have to consult with our family nurse, aka another one of my cousins,
Yeah.
about the miraculousness, or whatever. I'll figure out the wording later. Let's see. And then Aunt Rosie missing the top part of her stomach. Again, that's one of those stories I seem to kind of know, but not really. So.
When I had Rosie, all she did was throw up and throw up and throw up and throw up. So I took her to the doctor, and they got to check in, and they put her in the hospital and then did certain tests on her to check her. And they informed me that she did not have the top of her stomach. So when I laid her down, anything that was in her stomach came up into her esophagus. And so they put her on what was called a reflex board, which my brother made me 2 of them. They're at a slant, and there's a peg at the bottom, and their little legs go around the bottom, and then you have a strap that goes around them, and they lay on their stomachs. So when you feed them, the fluid stays in their stomach. And I finally took her to church and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't handle it anymore. Please pray. And the saints started praying and praying and praying. And I brought her home, and a couple more nights I kept her on the board. And then the Lord said, I healed her. And so I took her off the board, and she was fine. She didn't throw up or anything.
But they asked you what you were doing when they were throwing up.
Yeah, they
what
asked
you were
me.
Doing.
They asked me, what did you do when she threw up? And I said, I just held her up. And they said, we're glad you said that, because if you'd patted her on the back, she would have inhaled and it would have killed her. So the Lord used a little wisdom in my head.
So that's it that me and Brianna could think of off the top of our heads. You got any other stories you want to tack on? Want to tell how crazy the man you married is?
He's very crazy.
Well, then I guess it'll be it for this. So thank you for coming on. Allow me to fill your living room up.
You're welcome.
Once again, I asked my cousin Jacinda for a nurse's perspective on these stories. So basically what I ask you is, so she was born without hip sockets. Realistically, how long should that have taken either to grow in, or is that not likely to grow back? Or
so my understanding of her not having hip sockets is probably like something like babies normally when they're born. The first few days we'll test their hips because they can have like dislocations or they're not formed properly. So I'm pretty sure that's what she means by that is what happened. And normally when they have that, they have to wear a specific harness on to keep their legs in a certain position to help the hip sockets like grow properly. So I'm assuming that the bulky diaper she was talking about was the harness, and usually they have to wear that for several months. So usually when they have a problem with their hips, it'll be at least a few months of wearing that, and that may not heal it. So then they might have to have surgery to repair it.
Okay, so that gives me a little context. Yeah. So 1 to 2 months is on the low end of what you would.
Yeah, I would definitely expect it to be probably around 3 months of wearing. I mean, it could be faster, but it's usually a few months.
Okay. Okay, so you gave a name to what Aunt Rosie had, or at least what you think she had?
Yes. For her saying she was missing the top of her stomach means she didn't have her lower esophageal sphincter. It either it can often be like underdeveloped, so that could have been the problem, or I mean, I wasn't there, but there is possible that she literally didn't have it at all. And what that is just the opening between the bottom of your esophagus where it connects to your stomach. So it should stay closed if, you know, you're just going about your normal business. But if you're swallowing food, like when she's eating, then it will open. It should know when to open and close. So if she didn't have that, then obviously if she's laying down, anything from her stomach could come straight back up.
Okay. And you said in the case of it being underdeveloped, does it continue developing after birth? And how long of a process would you estimate? Obviously, without seeing Aunt Rosie, you weren't around.
I was not around. But it is often that it's not all the way developed. That's a pretty common issue, and babies will have reflux issues, not to the extent of what Aunt Rosie had, though. I'm not used to hearing stories of them like almost dying and needing to be straight up all the time. It is normal that they need to be their head up after feeding for like at least 30 minutes if they have a problem, but not to the extent that she had. But it will continue developing as they get older, and usually around a year old it should definitely be better, but it definitely is like a several months process.
Okay. And I forgot to ask how old she was, but okay. I'm going to guess roughly the same age with no information to go on.
Yeah, if I remember, I think it was like a newborn.
I did double check with Grandma, and Aunt Rosie was round about a few months old when she recovered. Thank you again for listening.